Well, this rate commission must have public hearings. Any citizen, anyone in this country can appear before this rate commission and express their views. They can also, any single person can go to court and sue this rate commission if they don't like the prices, and so they'll be control of the prices. They have spent over $10 million on the South Carolina Tricentennial, which included such things as the big building in Greenville that has not been completed. It's a complete fiasco. The building in Columbia and the operation in Charleston. Now, I am a firm believer in tourism, and we need it badly. But we must have a return. South Carolina cannot afford to just throw money away. And as far as I'm concerned, with these buildings not completed and the poor operation that we have had, I think it's just been a $10 million birthday party, a private birthday party for somebody at the expense of the citizens of South Carolina.
The goal of the pilot project is to determine whether a driver operating the experimental car can be evaluated as to his driving abilities from recorded data. The University of North Carolina Highway Safety Research Center hopes that the comparative data will spot drivers' weaknesses, detect differences in driving behavior, and ultimately provide standards for licensing North Carolina drivers. Rich Mortensen, WBTV News in Cabarrus County.
The report says during the decades of the 60s, crime rose 148%, but slowed substantially in 1969. In 69, the increase was 12% nationally, as compared to 17% the previous year. Charlotte continues to maintain a high position on the National Crime Index, causing one Charlotte City councilman to wonder if drastic cuts should have been made in the local police budget for next year.
I feel as though there's other places that we could have cut our budget other than the police department. With our crime rate on the increase, I think that we need to actually increase our budget in the police department. And I think that we now should take a new look at the police department with the idea of probably finding money somewhere to increase the budget of the police department due to this report that just come out.
Charlotte Police Chief J.C. Goodman said in an interview a few days ago, the problem of crime must be tackled not only by police, but the courts and correctional institutions. He said he visited the state prison in Raleigh recently and was appalled at what he saw there.
Well, here's a building that was built way back in the 1800s. It appeared to be medieval, really. And here we're trying to rehabilitate people under these conditions. This is terrible. There's no rehabilitation going on there that I saw. And these things need to be modernized and need some real deep evaluating and some improvements made. And the public is just going to have to recognize that there are needs to be met in this criminal justice system if they ever hope to reduce the crime problem. It's not going to be reduced the way we're going now. We're just spinning our wheels.
Goodman has said in the past that Charlotte will continue to show a sharp increase in crime statistics as long as Charlotte maintains a more accurate record-keeping system than most cities in the country. Paul Jones, WBTV News.
Mr. Hyatt, do you feel now that the crime situation in the country has gotten to such a state that it's necessary for people to carry a gun as a form of protection?
Well, it looks that way. Today, a citizen today doesn't have the rights they should have, and I think the crooks and criminal, till they start punishing them, I think the citizen needs some protection. And I think most of the citizens figure the same way, more and more so as time goes by.
How serious is the problem of illegal sales of handguns, not only in this country but in Charlotte?
Very, very serious.
Could you?
I would make a guess that for everyone that's sold legally, there's another 25 illegally. That's my personal opinion.
Over 100 handgun permits are granted every month by Mecklenburg Sheriff Donald Stahl. Applicants must only convince the sheriff of good character and a good record. But once a permit is issued for the purchase of a handgun, only the dealer keeps any kind of record. Sheriff Stahl says he favors a stricter law on permits, but would first ban the sale of certain types of guns, such as the Saturday Night Equalizer, a cheap $10 to $15 weapon, which has resulted in thousands of unpremeditated deaths in the United States each year. John Loddick, WBTV News.
Most of our catalog order business comes over the desk in the retail store, by phone, which is a very pleasant and easy way to shop nowadays. But surprisingly enough, the corporation did around $9 billion last year in net sales, and 22% of it was the catalog order business, which is $2 billion, and in itself a pretty good-sized business.
Bazookas come before bread, submarines before schools, and jets before jobs. Our per capita defense expenditure last year was 2.5 times that of the Soviet Union and 40 times that of Communist China. Indeed, last year the United States spent more money on weapon systems than the entire rest of the world combined. I do not consider this an acceptable apportionment of our nation's resources. And thank you. This very week, President Nixon vetoed 2 major appropriation bills dealing with health, education, water pollution, urban renewal, and housing, because they were, in his words, quote, too costly, unquote. The amount he was objecting to in that veto message was roughly some $900,000. Yet the same week he brought all the staggering powers of his office to bear in an attempt to obtain endorsement of a $10 to $20 billion anti-ballistic missile system, which is technologically unreliable, strategically unuseful, and diplomatically unsafe.
Part of the Coliseum's job is to prime the pump, gentlemen, prime the pump. The entertainment's a big part of it. But the real reason behind it is what you're going to do for the city, what you're going to bring in here. And this we have done. Contrary to anything, I will say, right here, without contradiction, we have done the job when it comes to bringing people into Charlotte. And this is the primary job. It is a main job. And it is not the dollar. It is, again, what you are doing. What are you doing culturally? What are you doing in entertainment? What are you doing convention-wise? What are you doing for bringing dollars into the city? And this is the only way you're going to equate this.
I guess it'll take a house mover to get it up there. It's a little large to put on a truck. I'm afraid this is kind of the story of the boat in the basement. Only I built mine in the yard and no way to get it to the river because of the height.
Is there any time during the 3 years you thought of giving it up?
Quite often.
What kept you going on with it?
My boys.
Do you get a lot of help from them?
Quite a bit. One in particular. The other one's a good supervisor. But when it comes to physical work, he's not too good. During the recent rains, I've took plenty of kidding about my ark. I've been booking passage for animals and people.
But you're not making any plans now for 2x2s to go aboard?
Not 2x2, no. Afraid not. Just be the family, and the only animal is my dog.
I feel a lot of people would feel a little better about it if the president had exercised his power of veto on some perhaps programs other than health and hospitals and education, which we have always considered. I say we, I'm talking about the governors of the states, and certainly I feel are essential to the well-being of our citizens all over the country. But the House, of course, has overridden the presidential veto. It is now before the Senate. I have wired our congressional delegation, urging them to vote to override the presidential veto on the education bill alone. I did not speak to the other measure because it involves a number of agencies. I'm not familiar with the details of how much is being appropriated to each agency, but I know the vetoing of the educational bill would have a detrimental effect upon North Carolina. I believe that most of the current concern seems to be on what's going to happen to it after it is disposed of. And my feeling, again, based upon the information given to me by the Department of the Army, that the solution that they had was the best alternative available. And those who are objecting to it haven't yet come up with an answer what to do with it, although somebody suggested dump it off the coast of Venezuela.
Dit is no en dit is yes. Dus I have learned to use a scheme what Freud and Jung have produced, you see, the subconscious and the conscious. And I believe that everything is in the subconscious. I say again, when you don't believe that, that is your case. I believe that. Dus what I do is, I believe that in this subconscious is a tape. And I go back in your past. And I can go in the future. Now, that works for everybody. And I have done cases from 500-600 years ago that came exactly so I saw it, that we have the evidence. I have so much documentation that I have the evidence from what I have done. I'm not telling you a story, I give you the clues and the evidence.
Most of these students back here, they're a little younger than I am, maybe 3-4 years. They have had brothers and sisters in my age who were bused. Some of them themselves have been bused past schools, and nobody said a word about it. And we find that it's very, very strange to us that all of a sudden when busing is going to descend upon all segments of the community equally, that all of a sudden this practice gets tremendous public scrutiny and is attacked as unsound. Well, it was sound when only we were being bused.
I do not like the political one-upmanship that we have seen in this state Senate seat. I do not like the political opportunism that we have seen. I do not like to see a divided delegation. We send 10 people down there, 7 in the House, 3 in the Senate, and yet we have a delegation that has fought among itself, divided within itself, embarrassed itself, and I submit embarrassed Mecklenburg County with a couple of exceptions of its membership. I have no political ambitions, and I can look you in the eye, and I can look you in the eye and say to you that I'm not running for lieutenant governor in 1972. State Senate seat number 2 is not a political stepping stone. It's for the service of the people of North Carolina and for the citizens of Mecklenburg.
I do know that Jim Cole couldn't possibly have walked the corridors of Western Carolina Center to see our mentally and physically ill children. I do know that Jim Cole couldn't possibly have walked the corridors of Broughton Hospital. I know that he couldn't have visited Central Prison in Raleigh, where the incidents of rape, assault, murder within the prison system itself would be enough to justify a population of 10,000. I know that he has not visited the mental patients in Dorothea Dix Hospital. I feel that he has little knowledge or interest in a first-rate drug abuse program, because if he did and if he had visited these places, he could not possibly support the repeal of hundreds of millions of dollars in tax money without suggesting a replacement.
Truth of the matter is that 10 years ago we were spending more than 50% of our national income on defense. Today we've got that down to where we're spending 37% of the national income on defense, and the rest of it on, or 42% on human resources, and the rest on general operating expenses. For the first time in 20 years, the government is spending more on human resources this year than on defense. So do you remember the dollar crisis of 1968? When we had a $28 billion budget deficit, and the Secretary of the Treasury flew to Europe to calm the nerves of the world bankers who were beginning to demand gold for their dollars. The Secretary of the Treasury at the time warned that we were on the brink of disaster.
The committee had agreed to recommend no Pacific sites, but to use Site D as an example of the kind of work that went into this presentation. The alteration that occurred apparently was done to promote Site A. The only basis I use this for is, and I have no idea, but the only basis I use this for is that Site A in the original report was about 1 page long and it now appears about 3 pages long. I don't know why this was done.
It is our opinion that since the appointment of Mr. Beaver, public service has been on a continual decline. The reasons for this decline are listed as follows. Number one, additional workloads for all sanitation workers. This addition makes it humanly impossible to complete any assigned route. Some routes have received an addition of over 500 homes. Number two, anyone assigned to drive a Packer truck in the past, in order to secure experience, was given an additional $5.40 per week to take care of the added responsibilities. This has now been curtailed. One of you councilmen plan to run for sheriff. I mean, this would really be a good way to stop our crime rate by having a lawbreaker trying to protect us from lawbreakers. But I think I speak for the majority of the citizens of Charlotte in saying that all of you men are enjoying your last term in office. And if possible, that we can get you into court on this secret meeting issue, that your next term, that I pray and hope, will be behind bars.
Well, it's caused a lot of concern among many people. For instance, the companies, you know, are diversified very much in a large manner. But I was in a tobacco meeting last night in Greenville, North Carolina, for the opening of today, the Eastern Belt. And the enthusiasm was very evident. And, of course, you know, the recent border belt had a record opening, and I'm sure, I predict that they'll have a record price on the Eastern Belt today. So with all this in mind, there seems to be some still confidence and faith in tobacco. Now, of course, we have been harassed and bombarded in every way, form, shape, or fashion. But they still continue to use tobacco, and frankly, there's many other things that are more dangerous than tobacco. Of course, that's up to everyone's opinion, but tobacco still is important in North Carolina. It's still a #1 commodity, and of course, it's having some effect on domestic use, but export-wise, we're still getting a good portion of the world trade.
Project Upward Bound, a training program for disadvantaged high school youths, to prepare them for post-secondary education in either academic or vocational institutions has been one of the so-called War on Poverty's more notable, if unpublicized, achievements. Winthrop College here in Rock Hill sponsored an Upward Bound program on its campus from 1967 through 1969, but this summer did not have the program. People close to Upward Bound in South Carolina speculate that the activities last summer of black militant outsiders, such as University of South Carolina dropout James Redfern, led to the cancellation of the program. Dr. Thomas Morgan, Associate Professor of History at Winthrop and Director of the program, had this reaction to those charges.
I don't think that that is the major factor. I think that it was a consideration on the part of the school administration that perhaps they couldn't continue to offer a program that totally fitted in with the kinds of demands that the national office was thinking in terms of for Upward Bound.
What terms was the national office thinking in terms of?
Well, I think that the program, the college, first of all, saw the program as primarily an academic program, that is, improving academic skills. And they felt that they could do this quite well. And I think that the program, as it has evolved through the years, has become more and more a program that's doing more than just improving academic skills. It's trying to improve self-image, particularly for minority groups. And I think that it's attempting to involve a lot more phases of cultural enrichment.
Whatever the reason, Winthrop College has now been forced to abandon a program which in most areas has met with amazing success and which has drawn praise from liberal and conservative senators and congressmen alike. John Loddick, WBTV News, Rock Hill, South Carolina.
The Dutch elm disease came to the United States in the 1920s. Since that time, thousands of elm trees have been destroyed, mostly in northern states. Tree experts have known for a few years the disease existed in Charlotte, but not like it exists today. A report sent to the Charlotte City Council recommends that the city cut down any elm tree on city property as soon as the tree reflects disease.
It's like a cancer. Once a tree gets the disease, and its effect is worse than cancer because it's so hard to detect. And as I say, once a tree is inoculated by these beetles, then it's doomed. But one of the hardest things to determine is that we can possibly determine definitely when a tree is inoculated, but there's no way of telling, and it all depends on the health of this tree. Whether I've seen trees this year die within completely within 2 or 3 months, or 2 or 3 weeks. But we've got
We bought this lot exactly 4 years ago last week. We bought the house because we liked the large lot. I've got almost 2 acres because it has almost 400 trees. One of our big requirements in buying a house was a lot of trees. So you know I'm very attached to the trees and enjoy the shade very much. I like shade gardening rather than sun gardening. And I'll be losing my shade, so I'll have to change a lot of my gardening and a lot of the plants that I have been growing. I'll have to switch to some other things, I believe.
The Dutch elm disease is the third major tree blight to strike the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. Before this, there was the death of the chestnut tree. Most recently, the pine beetle, which continues to take its toll. Tree lovers are keeping a cautious eye on the mountains west of here, where an oak tree blight is in the making. City landscape architect Hal Price said that, "I guess we've all learned a valuable lesson from this. We should plant more than one or two variety of trees." Paul Jones, WBTV News.
How do chemicals get into the water supplies of small communities?
Well, there are many ways. One of the most frequent ways is after a long dry spell, the well water level will drop, and residuals of pesticides of one kind or another will build up on the land. And then when a hard rain comes, it'll wash these pesticides and other chemicals down into the wells, and as a result, the well water will then contain sometimes harmful levels of pesticides and other unpleasant things that can cause odor or discoloration of the water.
Well, nothing else has shaped the opinion and taken care of the interests and the objectives of Negro any more so than this particular paper, because of its age and because of those who founded it and because of those who carried it on.
Do you come under criticism from the more impatient?
No, it would amuse you, Mr. Dale, to know that in 32 years we have not had more than 12 letters or telegrams of adverse criticism.
It's hard for any newspaperman to be objective about the impact of his own paper. But there is something to be said for the claim that the moderate stance of the Post reflects what might be called the opinions of the black silent majority. That is, those thousands who suffer daily indignities by white society, but who keep hoping and trying to unlock the doors that keep people apart rather than battering them down. Al Dale, WBTV News.
The tests showed that the water was normal and good for drinking. The results cannot be interpreted to mean that all small North Carolina waterworks are producing good water, but they do mean that any randomly selected sample may not necessarily show indications of dangerous chemicals or bacteria.
What we have here is a presumptive test for coliform. This is done by taking a sample of sterile water and pipetting it with sterile pipettes into these test tubes of prepared media. Now, if coliform organisms are present, gas will form inside these tubes and fill these small inverted tubes with gas. Now, this gives us an indication that coliform might be present.
The people in Cherryville can drink their water without fear tonight. We have waited until the test results were in to tell you which water system we sampled. It was Cherryville's water, and it was good water. Mike Pillar, WBTV News.
Well, they should first phone the Child Welfare Division for an appointment to discuss the different aspects of foster care. And if they continue to be interested, we would do a study of their home and get it licensed to be foster parents.
What sort of work do the social workers do with the foster parent in the program?
Each foster parent has a social worker of his and her own, and then the children in the home have a different caseworker. Caseworker works very closely with the foster parent and the children, and when any problems come up, when the children are sick, when the children need to visit their parents, the foster parents are in very close contact with the caseworker.
Foster homes customarily provide only temporary care for neglected and abused children. About 1/3 of the children placed in foster homes in Charlotte-Mecklenburg each year are returned to their natural parents within the first year. Another third return to their parents within 3 to 5 years. The foster home remains, of course, a substitute for the child's need for his own parents, and the need for foster parents increases each year. And, as one foster mother observed, If more people could see the good which a child gets in a foster home, that need, too, would be fulfilled. Rich Mortensen, WBTV News.
We have not been very successful in recruiting blacks for the fire department, although we have tried through 2 or 3 sources to get proposed black firefighters to apply, but they come in very slow. We'd like to have a lot more applications.
Why don't you get the black applicants? Have you been able to put your finger on the reason?
Well, I've tried to think of a real good reason why we're not having any of the applicants that we would like. I believe possibly the applicants that can come up to our requirements here possibly make more money in private industry than they would make in the fire department.
But it's a natural tendency for any man to take a personal concern when he's fighting the fire of his neighbor, his friend, his relative, or someone whom he knows. Without black firemen in Charlotte, then this attitude or this feeling cannot occur, because you do not have people fighting the fires of their neighbors or people who they know. Without black firemen, then the black communities that feel that they have the type of personal contact with the department that is necessary. Also, this contact is necessary in other times, such as bond issue time, which may be important to the department, as well as just the efficient operation of it, as well as in ghetto areas and other times.